Hi there, my name is Andrianavalona. I'm a paleontologist from Madagascar and a National Geographic Young Explorer. Today, I'm gonna talk a little about me, about why I choose to be a paleontologist, and more about science and paleontology in general. When I was a child, my favorite game was to play detective. I like to observe, find evidence, and try to answer questions. So I think it was natural for me to choose paleontology when I was in the university, because in paleontology you have to answer big questions, and the more fascinating thing about paleontology is also that you have to work with something that is dead, that was dead like millions of years ago, and you have to observe and try to find evidence from old bones and old rocks. How do I become a paleontologist? I think it's really from my early childhood. Since then, I wanted to be a scientist, and the thing I like the most in science is the way that scientists are looking at details of things and trying to analyze those details and then um, make a conclusion. And on the other side, I was really attracted in solving mysteries. So, like for example, my favorite movie is Indiana Jones. So you can understand why I chose to be a paleontologist. I wanted to be an archaeologist first, but I think to work with animal remains is more attracting for me. I received my doctorate in paleontology in 2016. So my work was on fossil sharks. When people hear sharks, they may think, oh, this really big fish in the water, in the sea, really fierce, that eat human. But for me and for paleontologists, sharks are really important because they are part of the ecology of a given time period in the past. This time period can go like millions years ago. Um, so, like for me, I'm studying sharks from 23 million years ago. So you can imagine that we don't have the shark body to work on, but we have these remains that are the only proof that the sharks exist, and those remains are their teeth. Um, I have here three three samples that I took. So fossil sharks looks like this. So those are shark teeth that are aged like 23 millions of years ago, and I have here a really small one, so you can see that the size is varying. So those shark teeth that I showed you belongs to three different types of sharks. So those remains are the only proof that a type of shark exists in one area. For now, let's talk about the scientific process. Your first lesson was about observation. So observation is when you look at the details of things and try to get data from those details, so you gather all the details. So for example, for me, when I work on the shark tooth, let's say on this one, I can say that its shape is a triangle. It has a bent side and a notch. It has also some denticles in it. The difference between the first shark tooth and this one is the size, and also this one is as a shape of like a perfect triangle. Compared to this, it doesn't have this bent side and doesn't have a notch, but it has those little denticles. So this, what I just said, is called observation. So you take the samples, you look at the details, and for you as an artist, you can draw. For us as a scientist, we also draw, but we are more taking picture. For example, for me, I used regular microscope. I used um, SEM. I wanna explain to you why observation is really important for a scientist. It's one of the steps to follow when for a scientific process. So observation is important because after doing this observation, you can have the details and you can have the description of a given sample. The first lesson you had with Susan is about observation, and today I'm gonna explain to you why observation is really important when doing a scientific work. So it's part of what you call the scientific process. For example, when I'm working on the samples I have, the shark teeth, the first thing I did is to observe their shape, what particularities they have, because as you can see, they are different. When you observe this tiny one, I don't know if you can see, but the side is smooth, there is no tentacles. So by those observation, I can say that those three shark teeth belongs to three different species. The second step is interpretation. So interpretation step is like what's behind the observation. So when you interpret, you are thinking, you are comparing, you are doing comparison, and you are trying to make a small conclusion. For example, I have um, three kind of knife here. So by observing them, you can say this one is, let's look really sharp. This one have small denticles like for shark teeth. See? And this one, it's not sharp, it's smooth. It has no denticles. So you can see that those knife blades are different. That's observation. You can draw picture, but when you are doing interpretation, for example, for this knife, the denticles can be used to cut something hard, but the denticles are not sharp enough to cut, for example, meat. But for this one, it has no denticles, but it's really sharp. So you can say that, for example, those two knives are used for two different types of food. So you know that this one is used to cut bread, and this one is used to cut meat. This one, the smooth one with no denticles, it is used to take butter. So interpretation is like the same process, but you only have to work on the samples. So for me, I have those teeth. Um, when I compare in the literature in someone else's work, I can see that different types of teeth in sharks are used for different types of diet. So there are sharks that eat mollusk, so they don't have this really sharp structure, shape, but they are more like uh, for crushing. So they are round like this, and they're used to do like this to crush the shells of mollusk. But the kind but the kind of shark teeth that I have here is more for eating meat. So now I hope you know what's the distinction between observation and interpretation and how important they are for a scientist. So I was talking about paleontology, but observation and interpretation are common in every scientific field. So I hope that you understand well now what's observation and what interpretation. I want to talk a little about a really general issue that is common in third countries like Madagascar. So we often hear about challenges like loss of biodiversity, bushfire, poverty, endangered species. Although Madagascar is really famous for its natural richness, so I think one way to to change this is to educate the kids and the teenager about how important is science. Because if we say loss of biodiversity, we have biologists that are working on species, animals and vegetals, but the average people in Madagascar doesn't know about the work. So I think it is important to spread the word about how important is the scientific process, how to be rational can make a big change in people's life and the life of the country, and why science matters. So that's the aim of the science center I am working on, the project of the science center. So it is really to explain to people why science matters. And we have many fields of science in Madagascar. We have many scientists, foreigner, and Malagasy who are working on Madagascar's unique richness and biodiversity. So I think if we say to people, if we explain to them what we are doing as a scientist, they will understand and then change behavior. It is really something really important for me to say. So for now, I hope you enjoyed this small video. If you have questions about paleontology, about Madagascar, about my work on shark teeth, you can always question me, and I will be happy. I'm happy to answer them. So for now, have a nice day, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.